You've probably heard that old saying, right? You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. It sounds so simple, but that little phrase points to a huge hurdle that just stops so many of us in our tracks. So let's get into it because we're going to explore why the real journey to greatness doesn't start with being perfect. It starts with the simple, messy, and honestly powerful act of just beginning.
I mean, just think about this for a second. Last year alone, literally millions of people decided to start. They bought the fancy website builders, signed up for the expensive masterclasses, got all the top-tier tools, all to launch their brand new online businesses. It was this massive wave of new beginnings. But here's where the story takes a turn. Just 6 months down the road, a huge chunk of those same people had just quietly walked away. You know, those ventures that started with all that energy and excitement, they were just gone. So what on earth happened? Why did they all stop? Well, what's so fascinating is that it almost never had anything to do with their equipment. They had the right software, they had the right tools. No, they hit a completely different kind of wall, one that no amount of expensive software could help them climb over.
And this really gets us to the heart of the matter and to our first section here. In a world that is jam-packed with things you can't control, we're going to zero in on the one critical tool you have total and complete power over.
See, the real barrier isn't the market, it's not the algorithm, and it's not your competitors. It's your psychological endurance. When you're just starting out, you're basically operating in this super volatile space. And if you think success is about controlling all those outside things, you are setting yourself up for a major crash.
And that's exactly why this quote is so important. This isn't just some nice, fluffy, motivational poster, you know? In a chaotic environment, your attitude becomes a highly functional survival strategy. It's that realization that, look, while you can't always control what happens to you, you absolutely control how you choose to respond.
Now, let's be super clear here. This is not about toxic positivity. That's the whole "the house is on fire, but hey, at least it's keeping me warm" kind of thing. No. Real resilience is totally different. It's saying, okay, the house is definitely burning down. I can't stop this fire, but I can choose to grab the blueprints on my way out so I know how to build it back even better.
It's kind of like being a sailor on a ship. You have zero control over the wind or the waves. That's the market, the algorithm changes, all that stuff. But you always have the choice of how you set your sails. Your attitude, that's how you navigate the chaos. It's the only thing that gives you a sense of direction when everything else feels completely unpredictable. Okay, so if your attitude is your sail, how do you actually use it day to day, especially during those really slow, agonizing periods at the very beginning? Well, that brings us right into our next section, how to redefine what it actually means to win each day. To really get why so many people quit, we got to look at a little bit of brain science. When you log in to check your stats, your brain thinks it's walking into a casino. Refreshing that page is like pulling the lever on a slot machine. You're just waiting for that little dopamine hit from a good number. But when the dashboard loads and all you see is a big fat zero, your brain feels an actual chemical withdrawal. Your biology literally screams at you to stop wasting your energy. So how in the world do you fight your own biology? Well, you have to hijack that dopamine loop for yourself. The trick is to shift your entire focus. Instead of chasing these unpredictable outcomes, you've got to focus on something you can control. Let's really look at the most important part of this, shifting to what we call input-based goals. So let's break that first step down. An input-based goal is a win you can completely own. Instead of a goal like, I need to get 50 clicks today, which, let's be honest, you don't fully control, your new goal becomes, I'm going to write and publish one piece of content. The second you hit that publish button, guess what? You've won the day. It doesn't matter what the analytics say. You get to fuel yourself on the pride of your own persistence. But what about when things go beyond just being slow? What about when they are an active, expensive disaster? I mean, it's one thing to have a slow day, but it's another thing entirely to have a day that just completely and utterly fails. This brings us to our next really crucial mindset shift. This right here is where beginners and professionals go in completely different directions. When a project bombs, a beginner sees it as this sweeping personal judgment. I'm terrible at this. I should just quit. But a professional? They just see data. They do not take the market's feedback personally. To do this, you have to start thinking like a professional. Think like a scientist in a lab coat. If an experiment fails, they don't throw their hands up and cry, I'm a horrible scientist. No way. They write down the result as vital data that actually moves them one step closer to the cure. Or think like a mechanic. A horrible grinding noise from an engine isn't the end of the world. It's a diagnostic report telling you exactly what needs to be fixed. So let's see how this actually works. You can see it in the table. The old story when an ad bombs is, "I'm a failure." The new story, the data, is, "Okay, I just learned this specific audience doesn't respond to that headline." Suddenly, the failure becomes localized. It's not that marketing doesn't work, it's that this one specific campaign didn't work, and now I have a clue why. And that reframes absolutely everything. You stop thinking of it as losing money, and you start thinking of it as exchanging capital for super specific, super valuable information. You're not failing, you are buying data that your competitors might not even have.
So, what does this all mean when we put it all together? It means the real journey isn't about trying to avoid the hard days. It's about understanding what those hard days are actually for.
See, the goal is not to be perfect right from the jump. That's impossible. The real goal is to become persistent, to build the kind of resilience that keeps you in the game long enough to actually get good at it. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to keep showing up if you ever want to become great.
And that all leads to this final, really powerful idea. That agonizing day, the one where everything breaks, where you feel that physical urge to just delete everything and walk away, that might not be a sign that you're failing at all. It might just be the moment you graduate from trying to becoming.
So, I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. When that day inevitably comes, and it will, when everything seems to be going wrong, is that the moment you decide you're just not cut out for this? Or is that the exact moment your real work finally begins?